Hello again, gang, and welcome back to another episode of Sit Down with Sims. That's right, Sit Down with Sims. I've decided I'm going with Sit Down with Sims instead of comms. I'll get into that in a second. And this is going to be episode number 6, although technically it's the 4th podcast. I was having a little chat with my chat on stream live today, of which, if you're not following already, kick.com/SMSY, SMSY. Thank you. And I was saying how I've seen quite a few people saying you should do Sit Down with Sims. A lot of people like comms, but a lot of people have mentioned that Sit Down with Sims. And I was just thinking, in terms of a brand, if this ever does get to the point where it is being really successful, which fingers crossed one day it will do really well, I feel like as a brand you could do more with the term sit down than you could with comms. So I'm gonna go with Sit Down with Sims, just in case that does happen. So sorry comms fans, but it's now called Sit Down with Sims. And to be honest, my fat ass is sat down, so it works. I'm not stood up doing this. So yeah, and in terms of the episode, so this is technically episode 6, but I might change the name of some of the titles of the previous ones, just because, like, the tier list isn't really a podcast, nor was me reacting to the old gameplays. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and do videos during the week. I'm going to try and do like maybe 4 or 5 videos a week. I'm going to try and do at least 2 of those being the Sit Down with Sims podcasts, so that you guys have got something to look forward to. Not that you shouldn't look forward to the other videos, but I know that these podcasts are kind of a little bit different, a little bit more insightful into whatever the subject might be. And then some of the other videos to be more things like tier lists, reacting to videos, gameplays, whatever, just to give us a bit more variety and not too much expectance of me being able to consistently come up with a subject for said podcast. Not that I think that would be an issue. I've got quite a few lined up, or ideas lined up that I need to kind of nail down, but I think we've got quite a few lined up for the Sit Down with Sims episodes. But yes, today's episode, I have obviously had a couple of podcasts up so far, 2 of which that went down the best was me talking in depth about my experiences with Sneak, and my experiences with Facebook, moving to Kick, etc, etc. So today I wanted to go through what it is actually like being a streamer. I get a lot of questions in regards to streaming. I get a lot of questions like financial wise. Still get people to this day saying, how much do you earn, which does surprise me, because I feel like most of you kind of work out what I earn on a monthly basis. I'll get into that as well. Anyway, but I just wanted to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it very frankly. I'm going to talk about it very openly, and I'm going to be very honest. And if you don't like that, then fuck you. You're entitled to your opinion, but fuck you. This is how I am. I am very open with stuff like this. If any of it bugs you, I'm sorry. It's not intentional. None of it's meant to be egotistical. I can assure you throughout the video you'll see why it's not egotistical anyway. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. If you haven't already dropped a like, please make sure you do drop a like. Please do find comments throughout. Feel free to just like check the time of which I've said something throughout the podcast, and drop comments throughout. I understand it's not live, but the whole purpose of these podcasts is to give you something that you can then talk about in the comments. It brings up engagement, brings up algorithm, hence the like button, press requests and comments and things like that. All helps the video to reach more people. So any comments you've got throughout, I am responding to all the comments. I am trying my genuine hardest to reply to everything. I feel like I've done that so far. So if you've got something to say, then please do speak up, whether it's negative, positive, that's fine. I might roast you if it's negative, just be aware, and that's absolutely fine. Moving on. So first and foremost, being a streamer, let's talk about that. Now, in my sense of streaming, is I play video games for a living. So when people ask me what I do for a job, if that's even on stream, based on my viewer count, people tend to ask me if I do this full time now, and family, friends, etc. I'll say I stream. I did previously say I'm a YouTuber, because I did stream and upload videos on YouTube, but now I don't stream on YouTube. I stream on Kick, and then I had streamed on Facebook, yada yada yada. So I just say I stream video games. That is great. To be completely honest, like, that whole concept is something that when I was growing up I could have only wished to do. I will always be grateful for the fact that I made this even possible to even have you guys made this possible to even have this as a job in the first place. It's pretty, still to this day, is insane to me. I literally grew up from, I mean, I don't know how old I would have been, but from, as I said, my first Call of Duty was COD 4. I started video gaming on a PlayStation 1. Before you ask, the first ever game, here's a way for you to comment. The first ever game that I ever played was on PlayStation 1. My uncle passed down his PlayStation 1 to me and my sister, and the first game I ever played was the Hercules game on PlayStation 1. If you played it, banger. I played that. That's the first game I ever played. Here's a comment for you. What was the first game and console you ever played? Or if it was on PC, what was that? What did you play? Let me know in the comments now. It'll be interesting to go through and see what you guys' first game ever played was. So let me know of that. That was when I first started, and I was pretty young then. So I had that, and then I grew up and I was playing. I grew up. I've never grown up. I was playing as I got older. I'd then play on games like Gran Turismo. I was still on the PS1, then on the PS2. I was playing like racing games. Always had a passion for racing games, FIFA, things like that, but not so much really shooters. The closest shooters I ever got to was when I was growing up. I started playing like GTA and that. Maybe a bit of Medal of Honor on my dad's PC or something like that, but that was about it. No Call of Duty until it got to the point where quite a few of my mates had got Xbox 360s. I had a PSP, was pretty much what I was playing, that or the PS2. Nobody was really as bothered by the Wii. It was more of like a party piece when like family or friends came over. I don't know if any of you guys would experience that. I remember being proper gassed when the Wii came out and then it just died. Do you know what I mean? Like people just got bored of it. And then yeah, like things like the Xbox 360 came out when I was in like early secondary school, I think. I don't know if it came out then, but that's when I got one anyway. So at that point, before I got one, I was around my mates playing on COD 4. They had Halo, but I was mainly playing COD 4 around my mates, doing private matches with them, and we were playing online at their house. And then eventually I got an Xbox 360 and I got Call of Duty, and I was just playing that consistently. And yeah, I always started, like my mates, it's like one of my mates who sadly passed away actually, he used to edit my like he had the recording equipment and he liked editing, and he would edit like montages of my clips like when we were growing up. Some of my other mates as well, but like I used to go around his house specifically and he would want me to go around so that I could get clips for him and he could edit it. So that was like that was my nerdy thing I was doing back in the day. So to end up, and that was on Modern Warfare 2 when we started doing that. So that was when it started, everything started blowing up. But I never would have thought that I would have left college, worked, had decent jobs. Very quickly let's go through my job history really quickly. Let's see how quickly I can do this. 16, petrol station forecourt attendant, clean the petrol station. Then I left college, joined the bank, and I was in the lending team, and I dealt with overdrafts, credit cards, loans, mortgages. Then I was a deputy there, and then I went to be a portfolio manager for commercial and business banking. That was extremely boring and extremely tedious, and mainly doing things like their accounts and stuff like that. Then I was a private health insurance sales broker. Then I left that because it was fucking awful. And then I was a new car salesman for Ford, and my boss was a complete douche, and I left that because I couldn't deal with it anymore. So then, because all the money that I made in the previous jobs, as I said in the previous statement, I'd saved whilst I was living at my parents, and I was a massive car freak and bought cars. Then I eventually sold my car because I joined Ford, which is what I've said in the previous video, and I used my savings at that point for a full year to start streaming, and I burnt through my entire savings till Blackout came out, and then suddenly I blew up, and then here we are today, 4 or 5 years later, still streaming. So that's how I got into it in the first place. I got really lucky on Blackout that people just started watching my YouTube. I was one of the few people at the time that was streaming it from the UK. I got quite good at it. People enjoyed watching me on that sense. And it just kind of popped off. It got to the point where on Blackout, my highest viewership, this is live at one particular moment in time, I would generally have between 1,000 and 2,500 viewers on average per day. But it got to the point at one point that I got to 8.7k live concurrent viewers at one time. That's my record, my all-time record. So I had 8,700 people watching me at that one particular time. which is insane when you think about it. Because if you think about that now, looking across the COD scene, like, that's like some big streamer level at that point. I'm not that now. I'm fucking like, I'm not even a tenth of that. That would be 870. I'm not even a fifth of that. I'm not even like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy when you think about it. I'm more like 100th of that on average, to be honest, which is kind of crazy when you think about the scene. So yeah, that's how I kind of got into it. So the fact that after all that time, if you think about the stopgap between the ages of maybe 16 to, I don't know how old I would have been when I started, maybe 23, something like that, that I wasn't really playing as much COD or anything like that. And then I started playing it again because I thought I might as well just fucking try it. Other people are doing it, I might as well try it. And it popped off. It was kind of insane to me, and I've always counted that as such a privilege that I've been able to get to a point where I could have that as a job. In fact, I could literally just do something that was always a hobby and sit there and do something I love and just do it and earn money from it, which was always insane. So yeah, so in that sense, that was great. I can do whatever hours I like to an extent because I've got a family, so I can pick and choose hours. Obviously, it has to work around my family, but obviously in previous jobs, there were certain hours that I had to work. Otherwise, you'd be in big trouble. I don't have that issue anymore. I am my own boss. If thinking about back those times where I was sitting there and recording stuff with my mates and editing the clips, we were watching people like Sprat at the time. I watched people like Scumpy, Formal, all people like that, like pro players and stuff, as well as like the montage makers. And now since that point, I've played with Sprat, I've played with Formal. Like, I've actually sat there and played with these people that I was like, I don't know if it's idolizing because it's a COD player, but you know what I mean? Like, it's the people that I grew up watching, and I've now played with them, which is insane to me. Like, that's crazy. I've played in tournaments that were of decent potential earnings. Not like got any, but like I had a chance, so it's part of it. I mean, I've been lucky in the sense that this has moved me out of rented accommodation with Molly, and we bought our first home from doing this. We've both got a car together. We've been on 4 holidays. What has we done? We've been really lucky. Like, I've been on, since I started streaming, I've been on 4 holidays. Me and Molly went to Rhodes. This is pre-Olive, and then we went to Crete once, still pre-Olive. Me, Willow, and Molly, and then before Otto, we went to Crete. No, we went to Portugal, which was the villa that I put up on Facebook last year. I showed you the little tour. We've done that, and I've had some great times and some great memories that are essentially have been paid for from doing this. So that stuff's amazing. I've really enjoyed that, and obviously getting to this level, I have worked very hard for it. I feel like to this day, I still don't think there's many people who stream as much as I do. I probably stream too much still. I've tried to cut back a little bit recently to try and focus on doing more things such as this, like I'm doing now, which hopefully eventually like will reap some kind of reward, both in terms of viewership. I mean, realistically, financials as well would be fantastic if it gets to that stage. That is part of it. So for anybody that doesn't know, in terms of streaming, not on Kick, because there's no adverts on Kick, but if you're streaming, or when I was streaming on YouTube, when I was streaming on Facebook, and I don't think it was when I streamed on Twitch. I don't think I had ads at that point. But anyway, when I was on YouTube and Facebook, a large part of the earnings, in fact, the main majority of the earnings when I first started streaming on YouTube and Facebook, the majority of my earnings at that point was ad revenue. So for anybody that doesn't know, in terms of the financial side of streaming, and how you actually earn, essentially you've got your stream, the amount of people that see an advert when it pops up, you earn a very small number based on the amount that have seen it, if that makes sense. It's called like CPM or something along those lines. So that was part of it. My main earnings at that point was, it might have been 60-40, but I would say it was 60% ad revenue, 40% donos. So that's the other side of it. Donations, that was a part of it, and then partnerships that I've got with, I mean, for example, now if anybody hasn't seen today what I was talking about on stream and my announcement, I've just announced a new partnership with energy company Nectar. So I'm now with Nectar Energy. That's the new brand that I've partnered up with. I'll leave a link in the description for that, but I'm going to try and see if I can sort of podcast with the owner of Nectar, Dan. I'm going to see if we can do a full podcast episode and you guys can get to know them better. So that's a plan for that. If you want to see that, let me know in the comments, because I think that would be quite cool. It's a family run business, or he mainly does it himself, and then he's got some family members that help him. So I think that'd be quite cool to maybe introduce you to them. So there's that. That's another form of earning that you can get from streaming. When I was at Facebook, I had a couple of bonuses. Not that they really paid them, because they still owe me over $2,000 in bonuses that they said about, which I've talked about in the previous podcast. So I won't go back into that. But no other streaming platform's done that. I'm trying to think of anything else that you can get in terms of owning. It's basically that. I mean, some people do on like YouTube videos and stuff, they get like paid sponsored streams or sponsored advertising. I've never done a sponsored stream, I don't think, or accepted sponsored ads. But like when you get to a certain level, like you see how people might like talk about, I don't know, but you know what I mean. You've all seen it when they talk about a product, and that's a way of earning money through streaming or doing videos as well. So that's one thing. But yes, so that's that. That's how I used to earn most of my money, was through the ad revenue, and that's kind of changed a bit now in the sense that I stream on Kick, which there is no adverts yet. Apparently that is due to come in, so that's kind of gone. And then there's essentially it's just subs on Kick. There's not like bits or stars like there was on Facebook or Twitch. So it's essentially just subs, or if anybody does do a PayPal or Streamlabs donor, that's my only earners now, and we'll get into that. We'll get into that in a minute. So there's that. I'm trying to think of. Wow. So, I mean, you can literally, if I'm being completely honest, there's been months when it's just mind boggled me. Like I'm saying, like if my parents have said to you, "Oh, are you still doing okay? Like doing that?" and it's like, yeah, I've earned X this month. I mean, I think if I'm being very, very open, oh, this is cringing me out even saying it, but I think my best month, bear in mind I don't get any salary or anything like that, this was mainly from ads, and I mean it was over the Christmas period, so it was a large amount of donos, but I think the best month I've ever had was over 10k. It was about 11 and a half or something like that, which was, it's just fucking ridiculous. I never would have got close to that. I was earning about like 2k a month when I was working full time before doing streaming, so that was just insane. But I think part of the thing with streaming that people kind of don't really see is the fact that, at least now, it might not have been the case back then, but at least now, one good month tends to then mean the following month is not so good, because everybody's then, they've kind of pushed themselves crazy on that month, so then they're on their donos are a bit like, we can't really do that every month, otherwise I'm not going to have anything, like type thing. So that's kind of dropped in that sense. But that's the sort of levels it can get. You can get insane money. There's people that make stupid money. I mean, if you look at somebody like, I mean, I'm trying to think of it in my sense, because Kick, so for every Kick sub that you guys donate, it's $4.99 per sub, and I get $4.75 of it. I think it's either $4.72 or $4.75. It's around that mark. So I get 95% roughly of each sub, which is insane. But then if you think about like somebody like Nick Merckx, he normally gets between about 50 and 60,000 subs roughly a month. So if you think about that, if that was on Kick, okay, granted it's on Twitch, but he's on some stupid multi-million pound contract. But even without that contract, if you just think about that on a sub level, he's on, well, he was at the time, I think it's now it's 50-50, but he might have gone back, but they're now 70-30 or something like that of per $5 sub. So if you do the maths on that, what even is that? What is that, a bit? Sorry if you heard that. What is the maths on that? 60,000 times 5 divided by 100 times 7. That's $210,000 a month. So that there is the potential to get to that sort of level, maybe, sort of. If it goes very well for you and you're very fortunate, it can go that sort of well. So that there is crazy potential in it. But this is one of the things, is that I feel like because there is so many people that get to that sort of level, I feel like there is this certain expectance, or I don't know if that's the right word, or just belief, just genuine feelings with people that watch streams that maybe don't understand it as much, that everybody's kind of just rich from streaming, which just isn't the case at all. Like, I've always felt like everybody just thinks I've got loads of money. I don't. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not the case. Like, I feel like everybody just kind of thinks every streamer's just rolling in cash, and they're just not. I've always kind of thought that, which, like, especially if you have like a good month, like that month I mentioned, everybody's just like, oh, he gets loads of donors, they don't need to give him any. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how that sort of mentality goes with it, which is sometimes a bit of a burden. I'm trying to think of like other things or other times where maybe that's the case. There's not really many other places where I think that happens, because part of the problem I think is with streaming, I mean, it doesn't help that I'm sat in here telling you exactly like earnings and things like that, but I feel like most people now could look at somebody's stream, because most people have a sub count, or there's a way of you seeing the number of subs that they've got. Most people generally know how much somebody's earned per month, or they all know it, so it's quite public information how much said streamer has earned, which I don't mind, but it's kind of awkward. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you do. I don't know if you do know what I mean, but it is kind of awkward. Like, my financial information is consistently out there every single month, so everybody knows if I've had a good month and everybody knows if I've had a shit month, which can be quite daunting. And sometimes it's like, it's embarrassing because it's good, and it's embarrassing when it's really bad. Like, you could have somebody that's like, you could have a troll that comes in that's just being a dick. It's like, go get a job, you're not doing well enough, how are you paying for your family, like blah blah blah, and they'll be trolling saying that. Or you could even have like somebody that's been watching you for ages or something could like make a joke and stuff, and it's like fuck it. It's like, I know, like, I know, you know, and I know that I know, and then it's just like, I don't like it. Like, do you know what I mean? It's kind of annoying in that sense, which it's not, yeah, it's just kind of, it's one of those things, you can't get around it. Everybody just knows. I've never really been that big a fan of that, but it's kind of unavoidable. There's not much you can really do about that. So is that the worst thing in the world if you've had a good month and everybody knows you've had a good month? No, not really, but it can also have an impact on what your next month is, both in the sense of some people, whether you like it or not, some people's mentality, rightly or wrongly, is that they might then be bitter about that, and they'll be like, well, okay, leaving that guy, I think I've got enough, and they'll go watch somebody else who's maybe smaller. Like, there's some people that will only watch smaller streamers, like that's just their thing. That happens. You've got the fact that some people just are just like, what the fuck, I can do that then, and then they'll just, everybody else starts streaming. That's what I think sometimes happens, which is why sometimes streaming's got really saturated, is that we'll see somebody who's, not me particularly, but they'll see somebody who's done really well, they'll be like, oh, that person's on loads, I'll start streaming, I'll do it. Like, and then there's more and more streamers and everybody's battling it out. So that's something that happens. That's not a bad thing either, again, but it's just something that does happen. More and more people will stream if they see people doing well. Success breeds success, I guess, at the end of the day. I don't know. It's just a bit awkward in terms of that side of things, and financially. I mean, I've got, essentially, me doing this, this is my job. Like, I don't have anything in the background. Like, this is it. Maybe that's my own fault. I mean, realistically, it's my own fault. Maybe I shouldn't have gone on those holidays. Maybe I should have invested in property or something if I ever saved it enough. I don't know. There's taxes still. Like, people, I don't know if some people think you don't pay tax if you do streaming. Trust me, you do. The taxman's a dick. I fucking hate the taxman. The taxman kicks me in the ass every month, just the same as it kicks you that are employed every month. It still does it to me, and it still sucks. There's the kind of feeling that, I don't know, I've always had this feeling, like, with streaming, that what happens when I'm fucking 40? Like, am I even going to be doing it? Am I even doing this next month? Like, let alone 40? Like, I don't know. Like, there's no reassuring backup when you do this, of you will be success. You are driven by yourself and you're driven by your community. So I've been very lucky to do it as long as I have been doing it. I don't know how long I will be doing it for. I hope I will be doing it for as long as I can. I hope that you'll still watch me if I'm still going at 40, 50, 60 years old. You'll be watching some old grandpa calling people shit kids, dog shit players, etc. On whatever we may be playing at that point, whilst I'm sat there on a hovering chair or some shit, carrying my fat bald head. That would be great. But you just don't know. Like, there's no... When you do this, there's nothing... Unless you do something else, and again, maybe that's my fault, but I put all my time and effort into this. My mentality is, again, rightly or wrongly, is if I'm doing this, the moment I start doing, I have to start doing another job. That's the minute I've failed. I don't know if that's probably the wrong attitude, but that's how I feel. Is that if I was to then go and get a job, I don't think I could still do this alongside it. Like, that would be it for me. Like, that's it done, because I couldn't then rely on this as a second form of income, because I wouldn't be doing the same hours, because I do crazy hours as it is. So that kind of fear of nothing else is pretty shit when you're streaming. So it's not all roses. Like, yeah, you can have some good months, but one good month generally follows, now at least in these times, follows on to a shit month the next month. So even if you've had a really good month and everybody's like, oh yeah, but you've earned this month, it doesn't really matter, because the next month I know I'm going to earn fuck all. Like, if you could think about it in this sense, yeah, granted it's not over, but if you look at, I mean, you can't see it on the screen, on my live stream last month when we were doing the subathon, which was insane, by the way, I thought that was such a successful thing, and we had such a great time doing it, and I couldn't thank any of you guys enough for keeping it going for so long. I did a subathon last month on Kick, for when the update dropped. So if any of you don't know what a subathon is, I did this thing where so I did an 8-hour stream, and then for every $1 that we earned during the stream, I had to add 2 minutes to a timer before I could come off the stream. I ended up streaming, and I would sleep on an airbed, which is folded up down there somewhere now, but I ended up sleeping on stream, and I was streaming straight for 9 days. I even had a vasectomy. I had the snip on the second day in and carried on going, and I streamed for 9 days. So that was you can work that out, but yeah, it was insane. So that was crazy. And I think we got to a point where I finished on like 1,250 subs on Kick, which was obviously amazing. Like, you guys, again, you would have, like, you all know how much, like, that's kind of worked out. But then in comparison, if you think about that, and then look at what I'm at this month, like, I'm not even on 200 subs yet, and it's on the 19th of July. I expected that to happen, but you just, like, that's what I mean in terms of amazing month follows a bad month. So even when you think about how good that month is, the next month is going to be bad. So it kind of just, like, it's not as good as it looks. Do you know what I mean? So everybody kind of looks at it in the, he's done this month, but they don't really think about that side of the month, if that makes sense, or the other month. So that bit kind of sucks. The other thing is especially with how many people stream now, I feel like streaming has got extremely saturated. Everybody and their dog, like I was saying, a lot of people now stream, so it is quite hard to stand out. I think if it all comes down to how well you kind of show yourself. So if any of you were interested in streaming, I would still encourage you to do it. Like, whether you're doing it, but just don't go into it with the full intention of this is going to be my job, because it's just, one, it won't happen, and two, it's not sustainable. I was looking for a job when Blackout came out. Like, my mum hated the fact that I still hadn't gone back to work. I was just chilling and hoping at some point it might happen. If it doesn't, I was like fully committed to going back to work. But if you go into it with the mentality that, yes, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to earn hundreds of thousands of pounds like Nick Merckx on a daily, like, it won't happen. You can't go in with it like that. You have to treat it as a hobby and as a passion. I've been really lucky that I feel like I've built up an insanely generous community that have supported me and supported my family for 5 years plus, and it takes that, like, it takes self-belief, and it takes a lot of dedication to building up that community. If you start shitting on your community and you're like mega toxic the whole time. Like, don't get me wrong, I'll get pissed off on stream. I'm not the most easy. I moan at everything. I've literally got a guy that's changed his. He's got his whole kick account is called SMSY. Not in like being a douche, it's banter, but like I moan a lot. But I'm not. I will never sit there and try and be like a dick to my community. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many people that are just toxic. It's like, how can you be toxic to these people when they literally have got you to where you are? Like, that's one thing. Just focus on building a community, a solid community, and you'll be absolutely fine. But just don't expect it to go anywhere. If it does, lucky you. If it doesn't, then at least you're doing something you enjoy. And I will go back to that in terms of something you enjoy, because a lot of you that watch me also watch Rezi, and I've seen, and he's somebody who I would love to try and get a pod with. I think that'd be cool to catch up with him. But he stopped streaming out of the bloom. He was streaming and he was doing okay. But one thing he talked about in his like video like a month or so later, like after his hiatus of where he's been, is he was talking about the fact that how playing a game that he really enjoyed and it was a hobby for him became more concerning about the financial side than actually enjoying the hobby. And it's like, it is really hard in that sense. Like, there's not really much way you can get around it, because if you do this for full time, yeah, it's your hobby and you enjoy it, but you end up being too, like, I don't have a choice. I have to do this in terms of the finance now, because I've got so many different commitments that I've taken on, like the mortgage, the fucking rising energy bills, etc, etc. All that stuff is just like piles and piles and piles on. And when you're doing well, you take things on naturally, like that you think you can afford at the time, and it just goes vroom, and then it's everything else can come back down, and it's like you're in that constant wave. So just be careful. I think it would be interesting, as I said, to get him on, because I mean, at least in my sense now, I'm where he's at with that. So it is a bit daunting, the fact that some people have kind of left it. But my hope, and it's always been my hope, is that yeah, if you have a bad month, the next month hopefully you can bring it back. So yeah, so there's that side of things. The other thing for me is that obviously I stream, and I stream like I'm the breadwinner in the family. We've got Otto that's only 5 months old. We've got Olive that's 3. We've got Willow that's turning 10 this month, and it's like it's a lot to stream around having 3 children. So I feel like my case is maybe unique to most. There's obviously some people that stream, they've got kids, that's fine. But it is like you can only do certain hours, because I have to help, because we've got so much going on. It's too much for Molly. There's no way she could work, especially not with Otto and Olive. Olive is a handful at the best of times. Otto's a handful. So I have to be around to try and help with that. So there's only certain hours that I could stream. So I try and stream as much as I can around there. But streaming can affect them as well. Like if I'm doing too much and then it gets too much for Molly, like I'll have to come off. Like it can affect them that if I'm not there. It's all well and good that I'm at home, and that is great, but I have to be in here doing this, otherwise we've got nothing. So I think people kind of see it like, yeah, you work from home, like it's everything's Cod. It's not really. Like, do you know what I mean? For me personally, like I don't really have anybody outside of this besides Molly and my family. In terms of like friendship wise, I just don't. Like this has taken up so much of my time, like doing this, that I kind of like that's kind of just gone now. Do you know what I mean? So that's part of it as well. Like you kind of get stuck in it. But the one thing I will say is that if you do build up a community, you make mates do it. Like through this, I've had people through my community that have gone out and they've made friends themselves, and they've gone and met up. So I've got Mike Payne in my chat, shout out to him. He's going to meet Christian Schwartz. He's going from Scotland to Germany, and he's going to spend some time with him and his family in Germany, and then on the way back he's going to spend time with one of my other mods, Robbie, or Arctic Jambo if you see him in chat. They're meeting up. Just Jack, who used to edit my videos, has met up with Globe. The other week, a few weeks back, Emissions went out to Dubai and met Janjules again. There's people in my chat. These names might not mean something to you, but if you're in the stream, they would. And these guys have met up. So there's people that have made genuine friendships from this, which is incredible. So that's something again that's like insane in terms of streaming, is that people do make genuine friendships. Yeah, like it's just crazy. Like there's people all around the world that have watched me from everywhere, which is again like that's a crazy feeling. So that's one thing. I'm trying to think of what else there is. I feel like, I don't know. The other thing is as well, in terms of like me having a family as well and trying to do this to support, is I've always kind of felt, yes, I've just mentioned the fact I've had 4 holidays, but besides that, I don't really have much time off. I stream 6 days a week, and I don't really take time off. If I'm ill, I still stream. If I'm like, I don't take time off. I've always had this fear, especially when I was on YouTube, because it was all algo dependent, but I've always had this fear in the streaming space that now, because there's so many people that do stream and there's so many options that you guys have got, and I'm obviously incredibly grateful when anybody clicks on and watches me, but I've always had this fear, and it might be a mentality thing, but if I don't stream for a few days, or I start taking days off here and there, I have this massive fear that people won't click back. And it's like, that could happen. I'm not saying it would, but it could. And that's kind of something like on a mental side, like there's a lot that is mentally very taxing with this, besides playing a shite game, which again is choice, but I've built up my audience based on COD, so it's not that simple to just sit there and say play something else, because you won't get the same viewership. I'd have to essentially start it again, and when got as much like coming out as I've got coming out, you can't just fucking sit there and just be like, yeah, play this, it'll be fine. I don't know why you play this. I don't know why you play this. That always fucks me off. Fuck me, that's such a horrible comment in chat when you see that. Why'd you play this shit? Why'd you do this? Just play something else. Just play something else. I can't, mate. It pays my mortgage sometimes. Like, it's like you can't really... That sucks. So that's one thing to bear in mind. Yeah, I've always felt like I just can't take time off. So I spend way more time doing work now, doing this. Yes, it's playing a video game before somebody does that douchey comment, but it is still tiring. I think people take that for granted. Like, I do more hours than most, even though like I'll come off my day streaming. I'll generally do between 9 to 5, and then I'll do something in the evening where it's me filming this podcast and editing the podcast, uploading the podcast, etc. That's what it looks like now, and I'm doing less hours. But until literally what last week, I've been doing 9 till 5, 6, sometimes 7, 8, and then I'll come off and I'll sort dinner, sort the baths out, tidy the house, put the kids to bed, like spend some time with them, and then I'll come on and I'll still do another like 4, 5, 6 hours. Like, I do a lot. It's a lot of hours, and that kind of whole mentality is a fear, I guess, in a way that could go away very quickly. And it's like, you don't want to waste the opportunity that you've been given when you've been in such a fortunate position. And yeah, it sucks. I've never felt like I can take time off, and it's not something that I can. There'll be people that said just have some time off, we'll come back. Like, that's fine, but some people don't, and I can't really afford to do it. So it's like, you have to do it a lot. You have to be there. You have to be an ever-reminding presence of who you are. You're there consistently, and doing as much as you can to stand out. So that bit's hard. Trying to be different in certain games is hard. Trying to be original. I feel like I'm trying to think of what my thing is. I'm quite good. I'm not as good as some of the top ones. I know that. I do think that. Again, that's another thing. I feel like there's an expectance when you're streaming to be at the top end, unless it's very known that you're very shy. So I feel like I'm in an awkward section, because I'm not very shy. No matter how much you troll me, I am decent. I'm pretty good, and I can play at quite a good level. But I think because of that, it's hard for me to do like a level that's just ha 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 having fun, because I won't enjoy it, because I still want to be at that level. But it's like an expectance to do that every single second of every single time. So it's quite hard for me to then turn around and be like, I'm going to do the whole jokey like content creator thing. I then struggle to do that the whole time, because then people come in and like, you're shit, and it's like my competitive nature then turns into, well, I'm not fucking shit. Like, that sucks. First world problems, I know, but that's something that does wind me up when you're streaming. That's just part of it. You will always get trolls. You'll always get people that take the piss. And again, you have to just build up a resistance to that. There's going to be people that will say some of the nicest things you've ever heard. Like, I've had people that have, even on a video a couple of days back, I think it was on the Facebook one, was one of the guys that commented on the Facebook post, was saying how watching me on Facebook had really helped him out with his anxiety, especially during the COVID times and things like that. And you hear things like that just amaze me. Like, that's better than a dono. I'll take that. As long as I can have a positive impact on somebody, I'll take that. And things like that do drive you on. And there's that, and that's amazing. And I'll take that every single time. There's also some people who are complete douchebags, and you just can't do anything about it. That's just part and part of the parcel. So you get a lot of shit, you get a lot of hate, and that's okay, as long as it doesn't ever, like, I don't know, you know what I mean, as long as it doesn't go too bad, then it's fine. That's part and part of the parcel, so that's something to expect. I'm trying to think, like, I mean, I've got a whole notepad here of things that I've written down in terms of talking about it, but I don't want to be too neg, because part of the whole come down really is the fact that the game that I play sucks. Like, it doesn't help where the viewer numbers have dropped on something else. Naturally, the viewer numbers drop on that as well. Yeah, it's a weird one. Streaming for me has been incredible. These 5 years that I've had, as I've said throughout this, whatever happens, like, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. If it does come to the point, I mean, I genuinely, like, it could be something that ends soon. I hope it's not, but I can't sit here and lie to you. Like, if I've got stuff to pay, I'm not going to go bankrupt. Do you know what I mean? Like, there might be a point where it stops. Hopefully we never get to that point. I don't want that to ever happen, and I'm extremely thankful that we've got this far. But hopefully things like the podcast, I've had some great feedback on the podcast. I'm really enjoying Kick. Our numbers are going up fantastically on Kick. I've been really enjoying streaming there so far. There's a lot of talk that Kick are going to bring ads in, which is why I've been focusing so much on Kick, besides the fact I've been demonetized on Facebook for streaming on Kick. Is what I've talked about that in the other podcast. Go listen to that if you haven't. Things have been looking up, even though some of the other side is looking down. So I'm hoping that eventually it has that shift. We get some momentum behind us and we can really drive on. But Kick have been talking about, like I said before, one of my main earners previously was ad revenue. Kick have supposedly going to bring in ads at a really high level, which would be amazing for me and it would definitely keep me going. But it's trying to keep, you have to, there's no way that you won't have to be verified. So I'm trying to get to a point where my average viewers concurrently is over 75, which doesn't sound like much when you think about the fact I said about 8.7, but that is just where we're at now. So I've got to get that, and then I'm pretty much fine. Like, the rest of the boxes I've ticked, so hopefully that will happen. Then hopefully Kick bring that in. If they don't, okay. But like I said before, we're on the basis that it's based on your guys' generosity, which I would never sit there and expect. But if it happens, thank you. Yeah, it's a weird one because streaming is amazing. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change these past 5 years. As I said, I'm so grateful for this experience. The only thing I would change, I don't know. I mean, maybe I could have done more before. I wish I started the podcast earlier because I feel like we can definitely make something out of this with the right I don't know how to say it, the right kind of push. Hopefully we get it. Hopefully you guys enjoy these kind of things. I know this was a bit deep. It was not necessarily the most positive, but trust me, I'm so thankful and I'm so happy with everything that I've done over the course of this. That yeah, I'm very thankful. Trust me, I'm very thankful for everything that you guys have done for me and for my family. And yeah, it's great. I hope it carries on. We've just got a new partnership with Nectar, so I'm very excited about that. That's another thing that brought a lot of positivity into the chat today. That's one thing. Again, I said, remind me again if in the comments if you want to see a podcast with the owner of Nectar. I'll try and see if I can make that happen. I knocked one over, my bad. That would be great. But yeah, you guys have been giving really good feedback on these kind of insights. So although some of it is neg, which I think, as much as people don't like negativity, I feel like it's kind of, you still want to know it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily all fucking roses in life. It just isn't. And it might not necessarily be the most, like, wow, like, yeah, that's great. I think people have got this thing. This is another thing. I do moan a lot, but I'm very honest about it. And I think some people respect that and see it for what it is, rather than just be like, ah, you're so toxic, like some people say. But nothing in life is, like, if you want something that's real, it's not always going to be, like, amazing. So I feel like that's why sometimes like the negative pods do better than some of the positive stuff, is because people want to know about it, regardless of if it is shit or if it's good. People still want to know. Like, if it is shit, they want to know why it's shit. If it is good, it's like, yeah, well done. Like, high fucking five, mate. Congrats. Like, good shit. But I still want to know. Do you know what I mean? When it goes bad. So I feel like, yeah, it's good to kind of go in depth, regardless of if it isn't always the most positive side of things. There's still a lot of positives within the negatives, and it's about finding those and how we can flip those and turn them into W's. Turn the L's into W's, as they say, and just try and find little wins here and there that keep us pushing. So thank you very much for tuning in to the podcast. If you haven't already dropped a like, if you haven't already dropped a comment, let me know something. Let me know when you started watching. Let me know anything. Let me know if you're new and you found this podcast. That would be great. If you found this podcast and you found it and you've not watched me before, you've not watched me play COD or anything like that, that would be great to know. I'd love to know if there's any of those yet. We've only just started, so I'd be impressed if there was. But hopefully you've learned something. If you have learned something, let me know what it was. It's yeah, it's a strange one. It's a strange subject, and hopefully it's still been worth the watch and you've enjoyed it, and hopefully you're looking forward to the next one, whatever the next one may be. Thank you for watching. Peace.